Hello, I'm going to talk about the secret of Agile speed to those of you starting with Agile. Agile is often associated with speed, and that is correct. What people sometimes assume is that Agile means faster developers. That's actually not the case. What Agile does is provide a set of guidelines to make sure that developers are doing the right thing at the right time. Now, these guidelines might change according to the methodology you're using, Scrum, XP, or whatever, but they usually focus around the following points. Do the most important thing first. Do complete things. Talk to your customers, and you should do this often. And test and fix early. Depending on the methodology, you might also have other points, but these are the most important ones and we'll focus on them. Let's start by focusing on the first two, doing the most important thing first and doing complete things. Waterfall projects are organized around the functional area. So you start by designing your project, then you implement it, and finally you do some quality assurance over the project. Agile projects are organized in a different way. They are organized around the capabilities or features of the product. So a typical Agile project would have a plan like this: feature 1, feature 2, feature 3, and feature 4. The important thing to know about this plan is that this assumes that feature 1 is more important to the customer than feature 2, and that feature 2 is more important than feature 3, and so on. The other thing that is assumed by this project is that the features are complete and self-contained, so each feature actually has a design, an implementation, and a quality assurance stage. Now, if you look at both the plans, at this point they have the same duration, so what's the point? Well, if you look at both projects, they are obviously ready to ship at the end of the project. But if you take a closer look at the Agile project, and if you are willing to drop feature 4, you can actually release right after feature 3 is complete. It might be more important for the customer to release earlier than to release a product with all the features. You can actually continue this exercise and ship the project without feature 3 or without feature 2. Now, it might seem a bit silly to launch a project with only one feature, but if you have beta customers, or if you want to ship this for testing purposes, it is mighty useful. Even more important than the ability to ship early is the ability to change. Let's say you're in the middle of feature 1 and you talk to your customers, and you come to the conclusion that actually feature 4 is more important than feature 2. You want to follow the Agile guidelines, so you can swap the two features one for the other. You can also come to the conclusion that feature 3 isn't actually needed, so you can just drop it from your project. And if there's a feature that the customer really wants and that it didn't fit earlier, you can now place it instead of feature 3. This is the advantage of having all the features independent and isolated. You can just swap them around, remove them or add them in the middle of your project, coming out with a totally different project. Now, obviously, you can also change the waterfall project, but it's much harder to determine what the impact will be of your change, and this makes changes much harder and unwanted. Easy, isn't it? All you have to do is divide your project by features and you have Agile. Well, actually, it is not that easy. And one of the reasons why it's not that easy is because of feature dependency. Now, imagine that feature 1 depends on feature 5. And that feature 2 depends on feature 4. So, what are you going to do first? You'd be tempted to do feature 5 first since feature 1 depends on it, but that's actually a mistake. If you look closely at feature dependencies, usually feature dependency is technological only, and customers don't really care about that, so you can find a way to split them. Of course, you might have to pay a little tax, and the feature will last a bit longer. But, as we've seen, it's very much worth it to do this kind of effort. So, we've covered the first 2 points. Do the most important thing first and do complete things. Now, let's talk about talking to your customers and testing and fixing earlier. Customer feedback is always welcome. Usually the problem with customer feedback is that it is a lot. Customers have always something to say about your feature, and if you do everything the customer asks, you risk yourself into transforming a perfectly manageable feature into a huge feature that you cannot fit on your project. This seems hard, and it actually is, but there are ways around this. All you have to do is negotiate and prioritize your features with the customer.
Here are some things you can say to your customer. You can just ask him if his feedback is more important than the next feature. If it actually is, you just adjust your plans accordingly. You can bite the bullet and do what the customer asks. There are features and there are bug fixes that really need to be done or corrected. You can also negotiate removing a feature that's less important than what the customer is asking and do what the customer needs. And you can also ask the customer if it is okay to leave what he wants for the next version. With this negotiation, hopefully, you'll turn a big feature into something a bit more manageable. At this point, our Agile project is actually taking a lot longer than our waterfall project, but let's focus on what we achieved. First, we changed the feature, so we removed the feature the client didn't want, feature 3, and replaced it with the feature that the client did want, feature 5. We also added a lot of bug fixes to our release, and we've implemented all the customer feedback. In addition, we have feature independence. What this means is, at this point, if we really are concerned with the release date, we can choose to drop feature 2 and release the project on time. After all, since the features are ordered by priority, feature 2 is the least important feature. Let's take a look at what it means to change a feature in a project. When you start a project, you have an idea of what you want, and you plan for it, so you have a planned goal. What the waterfall methodology does is it goes in a straight line from the start to the planned goal. Thing is, the goal might change. Either the business change, or you talked a bit more with the customers and you realize they really don't want what they ask, they want something a bit different, or the customers came to the conclusion that they prefer to have something different for their use. And this is the real goal, to have a system that complies with what the customer wants and needs. That's the strength of the Agile methodology. It allows you to change directions and go to your real goal in the middle of the project. Also, let's take another look at our waterfall project. Waterfall projects also need customer feedback and bug fixing, and that usually goes at the end of the project. So, it is expected that the waterfall project takes at least as long as the Agile project. Actually, it usually takes longer, because piling up all the customer feedback and bug fixing to the end of the project is a big mistake. The later you fix a problem, or the later you change something, the more expensive it will be. So, in actuality, you'll probably have a faster project using Agile than using traditional waterfall methodologies. What you have to keep in mind is that Agile is about change. So, when you design your initial plan, you must add swag to that plan to account for the customer feedback, the bug fixing, and the changes that might occur. After listening to all this, you might think that Agile is all about speed. It actually isn't. Agile is about project success. Speed is only one of the many factors that lead to project success. Well, I hope you enjoyed this talk. Let me know if you have any comments or doubts, and feel free to post them in my blog. Thank you.